Okay, so are you ready for this?
Always.
All right. So today we are diving deep into financial literacy. And, uh,
Yeah.
it's something we all talk about. We should all know more about it.
Yeah.
But it all started from a video that someone sent in. They were saying that
Right.
the whole system's kind of rigged.
Yeah.
And it's rigged against people who don't have this knowledge.
Absolutely.
And they were really saying, how come in school they didn't really teach you about money?
Yeah.
Like, how come you know about, like, the Pythagorean theorem,
Yes.
but you don't know about, like,
Compound interest.
compound interest? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a
Very-
really great point.
Yeah, let's play a little clip from this video, and
Awesome.
we'll talk about it. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm ready.
How many times in your school history have you ever been taught financial literacy on a regular basis? What's compound interest? What are taxes? And how do taxes work in my everyday life? What's the difference between an ETF and an index fund?
Wow, there's so much passion in that person's voice. And
Yeah.
you know what? They're right. I mean, there is a sense of feeling set up to fail.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about it, the U.S. education system, it hasn't really prioritized financial literacy historically, and it's not like it was an intentional thing
Yeah.
to keep people in the dark about their money. It's just the way it's kind of evolved over time. And the problem is that it creates this knowledge gap, right?
Yeah.
And that can have some pretty real world consequences for people. Think about your own education. Like when you were in school, how much emphasis was placed on financial literacy?
I mean, it's funny because they spent a lot of time on, like, world history,
Right, right.
which I love, and it's important.
Of course.
But, I feel like, man, I really could have used a class, like a semester,
Yeah,
even on personal finance.
sure.
That would have been so helpful.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what that video is pointing out, right? It's
Yeah.
saying, hey, these are things we should know. This
Right.
stuff matters.
And everyone, I feel like,
Yeah.
whatever job you end up doing, everyone needs to know about this
That's
stuff.
100%. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an artist, whatever it is, compound interest, taxes, investing, these are things that are going to impact your life.
Yeah, so let's go back to those questions from the video. Like those
Get the two.
those are some pretty big topics.
Well, sure.
So let's
Yeah.
let's start with compound interest.
Okay. So compound interest, it's kind of a magical thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically this idea that the interest you earn on your money, it earns more interest, and then that interest earns even more interest. It's like a snowball effect. So imagine this. You start investing $50 every single week.
Okay.
You're 25 years old.
Hmm.
You keep doing that consistently until you retire.
Okay.
Thanks to the power of compound interest, that relatively small investment every week, by the time you retire, it could potentially grow to over $1 million.
Really?
It's incredible.
That is
power of time
incredible. Wow.
and consistency.
Okay.
But here's the thing, and this is the catch. This same principle applies to debt too.
Uh-oh.
It's not always a good thing.
Right.
So if you're not careful, debt can snowball out of control in the same way that savings can grow.
Yeah.
So it really highlights how important it is to understand this concept.
Yeah. I feel like debt is something that really, like, sneaks up on you.
It does.
Like, you're not really paying attention. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, where did all this come from?
Exactly, yeah. A lot of people learn that the hard way, unfortunately. But that's why understanding this concept is so important. It's not just about growing your wealth. It's about managing your debt effectively, too.
Yeah. Okay. So what about taxes?
Taxes, right.
Like, everybody's favorite topic.
They're everywhere. Like, you can't get away from them.
Literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. You work, you pay taxes, you buy something at the store, you pay taxes. But they are a necessary part of how our society functions.
Oh,
Think of it like this. Taxes are your contribution to funding public services.
okay.
The roads we drive on, the schools our kids go to, the parks we enjoy, all of that stuff is funded, at least in part, by our taxes.
Right.
So knowing how taxes work, it's crucial for so many reasons. Budgeting, obviously, making sure you have enough to cover your tax obligations. Investing, there are tax implications for different types of investments. And even big purchases like buying a house or a car. Understanding taxes can help you make more informed decisions and potentially save money.
Yeah, I feel like taxes have always been kind of this, like, black box for me. Absolutely. It's like...
It's a necessary evil
Right.
that I just didn't really want to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about investing.
All right, investing.
Right.
So the video mentioned things like the stock market. ETFs, index funds, these are all really important concepts, especially if you're thinking about long-term financial growth. But I get it, it can feel like a whole different language.
Yeah,
right?
it's okay.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
So first, the stock market. Think of it like a massive online marketplace.
Okay.
Companies, they want to raise money to grow their businesses, so they offer pieces of themselves called shares to the public. That's what's called the primary market.
Okay.
Then, once those shares are out there, they get traded among investors in the secondary market. That's where you and I would come in, buying and selling stocks through platforms like the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. Now, ETFs and index funds, they make things a little easier, especially for beginners. They're
Okay.
like pre-assembled baskets of stocks. So instead of trying to pick individual companies, you can invest in an ETF that tracks a specific market index.
Okay.
So for example, let's say you invest in an ETF that tracks the S&P 500.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're essentially buying a tiny piece of the 500 biggest companies in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
It's a way to diversify your investments, spread your risk, and potentially ride the wave of the overall market growth.
So it's like, instead of like putting all your eggs in one basket,
Exactly.
you're spreading them out.
You got it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I wish someone had explained it to me like that before.
Right.
I mean, this deep dive is making me think that maybe they should have taught us this stuff in school.
I agree with you 100%. And you know what? There is actually a growing movement to incorporate financial literacy into school curricula.
Oh, okay.
But it's slow progress, right? It takes time to change these things. But the good news is you don't have to wait for the system to catch up. There are so many resources available for people who want to learn on their own. Websites, podcasts, books, online courses, you name it. You have the power to take control of your financial education right now.
Yeah.
And it's never too late to start, really.
So even though we might have missed out on this stuff in school,
Yeah,
we can still learn it now.
absolutely. And that video, that's a great jumping off point. Those questions that the speaker asked, they're really thought-provoking. So what resonates with you the most?
Yeah.
What piques your interest? Start there and dive in.
Exactly. Use those questions as like a launching pad.
Exactly.
Just see where it takes you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So anything else you want to add to this before we wrap up? I think the biggest takeaway for me is that knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your money. Understanding your finances, it allows you to make informed choices. It allows you to build a secure future for yourself and maybe even challenge the status quo a little bit.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the system might seem.
I love that. All right. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening,
Thanks for having me.
and we will see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.